2 of this week's Mad for Midlife Chat, a series of conversations where I speak to inspirational people who are challenging the narrative on ageing. Simon is here, so keep your fingers crossed that he's had a button, because last time he wasn't sent the button. There we go, he's had the button. Here he comes. Hello to the people who are coming back. That's very kind of you. So let's have a look. Yes, you are here. The button arrived, and that's all we wanted. So, didn't do my usual spiely introduction because I was that bothered about making sure that you'd got the button this time. But I just want to introduce you before you actually do the better introduction yourself. So here we have today Simon Long, who is the growth director for 55 Redefined. Now, I have been looking at the website, and this is what I've learned about 55 Redefined, but you're going to tell me more information. So 55 Redefined is the UK's champion for the over 50s. They are a disruptor, and they are challenging the status quo. They're an advocate for age diversity, positivity, and inclusivity across all areas. Is that about right?
What a mouthful. Yeah.
I know, but it was good.
Like that.
Anyway, thank you for being here, Simon. Thank you for pushing yourself through your own comfort zones just to get on your first Instagram Live.
What a privilege it is. It's the first time for everything. I'm just sorry I made it a bit complicated.
It's fine. You left me there to waffle and test my, what shall I talk about now? No one did request my tap dancing skills, so everyone was saved from it.
First, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so that was the formal introduction, but if you would like to introduce yourself, how you would introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, I basically, as you say, I work for 55 Redefined. I'm the tender age of 56, and I've joined because I got sick and tired of being on the receiving end of ageist language and behaviour. And at 55 Redefined, what we do is champion the values and show that being over 50 does not mean being over the hill. So I'm hoping to help other people avoid the experiences that I had and help organisations recruit and engage with those of us who've still got so much to give in life.
Brilliant. Okay, that's enough. That's great. That's everything. We're big supporters. Right, I'm joking. So, okay, let's take it back a little bit. How did you get here? Can you tell us a bit of your personal story, a bit of your personal journey, how you ended up?
Sure. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. Personal story is I did the corporate thing after leaving university, like so many of us did, working in booze. So I started in booze at Diageo. Then I went to motorsport. So I went from booze to cars, a rather unholy alliance. And then I went to sport. And then I exited and went into the wonderful world of research. So I worked largely in the corporate environment. Why did I end up at 55 Redefined? I set up my own business just before COVID, didn't know that was coming, struggled my way through 2 years, and then, frankly, the business just dried up. So I thought, right, time to get a job. 120 job applications later, there I was without a job offer, with one interview to my name, having been described as overqualified more times than I care to recount. So I frankly found myself in a pretty miserable place, I'll be honest with you. I lost my mojo. I felt I'd hit the wall. I'd hit the buffers and wondered, well, is this it at 56? How am I going to get a job? How am I going to have purpose? How am I going to contribute as a husband and to my family? How am I going to have anything good to do with my life, frankly? So I got into a bad place, lost weight, couldn't sleep, really struggled. And I wrote a rant on LinkedIn. So for those of you out there who don't do LinkedIn that often, trust me, it can sometimes save your life. As I was luckily given an audience on LinkedIn by the founder of 55 Redefined, the wonderful Lindsay Simpson. And a few months later, we chatted again, and I was offered this opportunity. And in almost overnight, I recovered my mojo, and I knew that I was in a place where I could do something really meaningful with my life to help others and do something more than pay shareholders and talk about return on investment. This is about return on life, on lived experience, and I couldn't be happier.
Brilliant. My next question, I think you've already answered it, because I I was about to say, why are you so passionate? Why did you turn this into, I'm going to say your life's work. I know that sounds dramatic, but it is your work now. I think we know why, your own personal experience.
Well, yes, I think that's it. I mean, being totally honest with you, and it's the first time in my life I think I've ever been able to be really honest. I feel as though I've made peace with my ego. I think for a while I was chasing things that I thought I had to do or should do, or I was measuring myself by other people's yardsticks, whether it was my parents, my brothers, my friends. And I've been doing a lot of things that really didn't make me feel the way I do now. I didn't skip out of bed in the morning. I had difficult Sunday nights dreading the week ahead, whereas now I'm skipping around the place full of the joys of spring because I feel I'm doing something in a way that my life's experience has enabled me to. Many roads have led to this point. I've had many ups and downs like all of us. And I think the passion comes from knowing that how desperate it can be when you don't have opportunity, when you're isolated, when you become a poor version of yourself, sometimes through no fault of your own or through circumstance. And recognizing how fortunate we are to have opportunities in life, to be recognized for who we are, to be capable of being the best versions that we can be of ourselves, and being welcomed for exactly who we are regardless of age. That's a heady combination and something I never thought I would partake of, and yet here I am, not only preaching it, but living it. And it's difficult not to feel passionate when there are so many of us who will all, in fact, all of us who are lucky enough to live to our 50s, we're all going to go through this, like it or not. It's life's great common denominator that we will all age. So my mission and our mission is to fly the flag for that experience and show that age in all of its glory is wonderful. Whether you're young, middle-aged, or in the later stages of life, being able to acknowledge those rites of passage is a wonderful thing. And everybody has something beautiful to offer to the world and to the workplace.
I could just sit and listen to you. No, honestly, I'm sitting there and I'm going, yes, I agree. And you are the 8th in this series, and there is so much overlap that's now starting to happen because so far everyone's had a very different story. Some people are here talking about their personal experience. Some people are talking about their health journey. Some people are talking about their fitness journey. Some people are talking about redundancy at 50. Yeah. And yet the overlap is incredible. And so much of what you've said, I've gone, oh, Eleanor Mills said that. She was worked for the Sunday Times. I think you're connected to her, aren't you? You know,
yes,
with Noon. And, you know, she was made redundant at 50 after 20 plus years working for the Sunday Times. And all of a sudden was like, what happens? And again, found this whole, but I'm over 50 and doors close and I just
it's mad, isn't it, Katie? Because I mean, being 50 today is very different to what 50 was like 100 years ago. If I was 50 100 years ago, I'd be getting ready to meet my maker. We're now living on average 30 years longer than we were just a century ago. It's extraordinary to think of the changes demographically that are going on. So I feel that our moment is coming. Those of us over 50, I think there is a dawning realization now that with fertility rates going down, fewer young people in the jobs market than there were, an aging population, whether it's here or internationally, we are at risk if we don't do something of sleepwalking into a social disaster, whether it's healthcare, whether it's the workplace, whatever. So I feel this is our moment in the sun. And as long as we can be responsible and positive and not complain about our lot, let's demonstrate what we can do in this multi-generational world to bring our lived experience to bear for the benefit of others and enable all of us to get the best out of one another. I don't want people in 10 years' time to be facing the type of statistics they are today. Notably, just to give you a couple of stats, 1 in 3 of us over 50 have not been in any way contacted by a recruiter in the last 12 months. And that goes higher if you're a woman. Equally, a third of us who were made redundant during COVID were over the age of 50. And yet the population, the working age population, is going to reduce by 25% between now and 2050. And yet the over 50s, in fact, the over 65s, we're going to grow by 65%. So there's going to be a massive disproportionate reimagining, if you like, of the shape of our population, which means we need older people like me in the workplace. We can't afford, many of us, to live a 40-year retirement because the pension isn't made for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to change as a society, governmentally, public, private sector, employees and employers alike. We've got to look differently at the changing winds, the changing face of this world that we live in.
Yeah.
And I think I'm beginning to see that now. The budget recently pointed to that, although I wasn't totally in agreement with everything that came out of it. Didn't like the reference to us all being on the golf course, that's for sure. But, with a bit of luck and a bit of planning, and some really evangelical leadership by people like Lindsay Simpson, my CEO, by Eleanor Mills, who you mentioned, we'll be able to move the agenda.
Yeah. What totally confounds me is, I am not yet 50, but I am 50 in just a few months.
You've got lots to look forward to,
exactly.
Katie.
I'm really excited. As I say, every week when someone goes, and I go, oh, I'm 50 this year, and someone goes, oh, and I go, no, I'm really excited. Don't say that to me. I think it's going to be a brilliant decade, so fingers crossed. What really confounds me is still this stereotype, over 50, that you've got no enthusiasm in the workplace anymore, that you want to retire, that you want to be on the golf course. And my husband's slightly younger than me, so he's got another year to go, but he's a company director, and he's in recruitment, which is a very young, stereotypically, a young, energetic, go-getting, driven, money-driven, And the thing is, he's approaching 50 and he's thinking, I'm a company director, and if I'm not careful, I'm actually going to age myself out of my own business. And if I'm not careful, I'm going to not have the best experience and the best quality of staff. And I think thinking that we all lose that drive and that will to get up and work 5 days a week or 6 or whatever it is, it's so narrow-minded, so short-sighted. And sorry, I'm having a ramble. I'm taking over. I will come back to you. What about all the experience that we have? Is that not worth anything? Well, it is. It absolutely is.
Well, I think we're waking up to it, aren't we? I always liken somebody over 50, when they leave the workplace, it's a bit like a library being burnt down or a hard drive being ripped out of a laptop. And unlike all the training that we get when we join a company, when we exit a company, it's like goodbye, almost overnight. And all that experience has gone. Equally, at the start of our careers, we're given career advice, various options. We might get apprenticeships and training. But again, if we leave through no fault of our own, what training do we get then? So there's a whole new life that we need to adapt to. Many of us have been almost institutionalized by working with particular companies for many, many years. So I think what's happening now is a realization that flexibility is the key word. That for those of us over 50, we may be caring for elderly parents. We may want to spend a little less time on the front line and bring our experience more to bear for the benefit of others. We may want to mentor folk. We may want to tutor. We may want to volunteer. So I think for those organisations who can recognise that, they'll be able to tap into a much longer lived workforce by accessing people who feel that they are thought about, they are understood, they're given opportunities to develop just like their younger counterparts. And I think that is the way that people will be able to live longer and live longer, happier careers, and companies will be able to have a more productive, better balanced workforce. And at the end of the day, that's what they want. The most important people are your people. Those are the most valuable assets. And if you don't have an age strategy, frankly, with the way the demographics are changing, you won't have a growth strategy because you won't have the talent in place to deliver the strategic aims of your business. So people have to change, and we're leading that charge.
Yeah, it's great. Again, just going back, because my reference point from a business leader's point of view is my husband. And 10 years ago, he would have been so narrow-minded. You must work Monday to Friday. You must work 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. You must do this. You must do that. You must be prepared to do this. And you must be young and full of energy. Now, all of a sudden, he's looking at his workforce, which is aging, as well as obviously constantly bringing in new people, younger people and trainees. And he's found that if he gives people that bit of flexibility, they pay it back
Big time.
like tenfold.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's a marriage, isn't it, of flexibility now, but also purpose. And I know it's a much overused word, but I think it's a general truth that as we get a little bit older, we do appreciate more the influence that we can have on others and how we can apply the lived experience that simply by accumulating more years on this planet, we inevitably acquire. So it's not saying that we're better than a younger version of ourselves. It's simply that we've been around a little bit longer and acquired some experience. So if we can find roles that combine flexibility with purpose, if we can find employers who recognise that we're still curious at our age and are prepared to learn, and in fact, research we did recently showed that 89% of people over 50 are willing to reskill, even if that involves a pay cut in order to find the right role. So recognising that give and take between employer and employee, I think will allow organisations to get competitive advantage and future-proof their workforce, but it will allow us as employees to feel better loved and understood as part of a multi-generational workforce, and it will allow us in society to contribute in a more equal way rather than this increasingly divided gap that we have between old and young, male and female, different backgrounds that we have. We need to be inclusive and diverse. That's the beauty of humanity. Our very diversity is what sets us apart from any other species, and we should be celebrating that.
Yeah, I agree. I am thinking, I often feel with my little voice here that I am a very tiny fish swimming against a tsunami tide. I'm constantly trying to change this, and some people say, I hate this expression, but I can't think of a better way to say it right now. Change the narrative on aging. Yeah. Do you think, from a workforce point of view, we can change the tide voluntarily, or do you think ultimately it's going to come down to the fact that some of the statistics and some of the facts that you have pointed out, there is going to be no choice? With an aging population that can't be sustained by their pension, etc., and a decrease in fertility or birth, will we be forced to adopt this more inclusive?
Yes, I think it is. It's a complete no-brainer. It's gone beyond a question of if. It's got to be when and how we do this, how government does this, how health systems do this, how private and public sector work together to achieve a better balanced, future-proofed society. I liken it rather crassly to climate change. The naysayers around climate change. The reality is we have to do something now. We have to do the same with this time bomb that is our aging population. 1 in 2 of us born today have got a 50% chance of living until we're over 100 in this country. In Japan, it's 107. Can you believe it? So we're going to live longer. We're going to need to cater for a longer-lived community where we live, whether it's design of housing, our retail experience in shops, the health care provision that we need to have, the social services that are out there. Every single aspect of life really needs to be looked at through this multi-generational, longer-lived lens if we're to create an environment that we can all thrive in. Because if we don't, we're going to create an increasingly divided society of the haves and the have-nots, the isolated and the excluded, and the privileged few.
You're scaring me a bit now. but yes, I agree. I was going to say, workforce. Do you work with brands as well at trying to be more inclusive from it? Because that's one thing. From both a personal point of view, I remember probably it was in my early 40s. I was sitting in the hairdresser reading a magazine that was aimed at the over 40s, and yet every advert was full of 23-year-old models. And I was like, it hit me. I remember the day I was like, I'm not interested. It actually started to turn me off the brands because they weren't. And I have nothing against young models at all. Go out there and do your job. You're beautiful and you're lovely and everything. But when you're aiming it at me, then I have a problem.
Yeah.
But of course, professionally, I'm also a model. And I didn't start modeling until my early 40s. So I have a personal point of view, and I also have a professional and please give me the money point of view. Please use age-appropriate models. I wrote a blog post back in 2016 that just said use age-appropriate models at every age. No one is saying there's not a place for young models. There absolutely is. But I've been used as a 40-year-old to advertise chairs that lift you up. That for me should have been using a model that was 70 plus.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't have, a disability that would mean that you would use that chair, but they weren't aimed at 40-year-olds. They were aiming them at older women. And I don't want to be used in the way that 23-year-olds are aimed at me. So from your point of view.
Well, to answer your question, definitely, I mean, brands are on our radar, and there seems to be this absurd moment where when one hits 50, it's almost like somebody presses the accelerator button and you're accelerated into a wheelchair almost overnight, and that the only adverts we're interested in are for funeral plans or for, I don't know, cruises. Nothing against cruises, of course, or eye tests or whatever. So there is this stereotyping of us over 50. That needs to be taken into account. I'll give you another fact, just because there's nothing better to counter bias than with hard evidence. Last year in the UK, 75% of all consumer spend was by people aged between 50 and 75. Wow. That's everything from mortgages through to holidays, through to this weekly shop. And yet only 6% of total advertising targeted this incredibly influential age group. And that's my point, that we are so influential when we get over 50 because we've been around the block a little bit. We may have children, we may have grandchildren, we may have parents. We may be influencing various generations around decisions that they're making around how they spend their time and how they spend their money. And particularly so if you're a mother, who, as research will show, is often regarded as the principal decision maker around home spend. The CEO of the household, I've heard mothers described as. So women are even more disadvantaged and excluded than men are in the marketing reckoning. So yes, to answer your question, we are working with brands. Boots comes to mind. They recently worked with us around an age accreditation program that we do to demonstrate that they are arms open to people over the age of 50 working for them and retraining to work for them. Why? Because they recognise that a large proportion of their customer base are also aged over 50. And what better than to see yourself mirrored by somebody who's trying to sell or introduce you to a new product or test your eyes and so forth. Likewise, the likes of AXA and Barclays on the financial side, they're working with us because they understand that products like mortgages, like pensions and so forth, private wealth management for those few who are in that area, it requires a certain perspective in life to be able to really demonstrate how those products and services might benefit the end consumer. And it's asking too much of an 18-year-old to do that, let's be honest. So I think there's a reckoning that's beginning to go on, partly because it needs to happen, partly because it's socially the right thing to be doing. And we're beginning to see a changing of the agenda, changing the narrative, as you say. But there's a long way to go.
I think there's a couple of things. One, someone's pointed out that they needed to use that mobility chair much earlier, and actually they get a bit pissed off when they're all elderly people doing it. So I take your point. Yes, you've opened my mind to that, so thank you for that. And the other thing is, you've made me think now with mortgages even. So at my age now, so going into 50, if I wanted to take out a brand new mortgage on a 25, they wouldn't want to do that, would they? But are they going to have to start looking at even like changing the length of a mortgage agreement?
There are providers out there who will be able to help you get a mortgage, and there are products and services out there. But your point is really well made, which is suppliers, brand owners, service providers are now waking up to both the necessity and also the business opportunity of customizing their products and services to an aging profile. And if you want to keep a customer loyal from their very first bank account as a student or leaving school to mortgage provision when you're in your over 50s, isn't it great if you can map out an entire customer life journey by offering different products at different times and keeping that person engaged throughout their lives? Then they go away as natural advocates, knowing that you care about them and that you've been there for them.
Yeah, this is interesting because I've never thought about, because of our aging population so many things that have been set in stone now for so long. Oh, don't give a mortgage to anyone over 50. You know, you've got to be paying your house off by that age.
Well, that's the thing.
Starting.
Yeah. I mean, another example, people say that the over 50s are digitally illiterate, which is complete rubbish. We know that, for example, on Facebook, the biggest demographic is in fact over 50s. We also know Instagram is increasingly popular. Dare I even say that TikTok, yes, is being used by we ancient over 50s. So the bottom line is there are a lot of misconceptions that need to be put straight. Another example would be those people who think that when you get over 50, the wheels fall off us physically. We're actually 205% less likely to have a day sick than somebody aged under 30. And there's hard-nosed evidence that the over 50s tend to be more loyal in tenure, tend to stay with a company longer. And certainly, as you said earlier, if you've come out of maybe bringing children up, or you've been caring, or you've been ill, or for whatever reason, you've been out of the workplace after many years, how excited, how motivated are you when someone says, yeah, I'm going to give you a chance? You really are. Yeah. And you pay back in spades that loyalty. So, yeah, many different reasons. It's almost like the business case, isn't it, that needs to be expressed as to why we are such valuable members of society with so much to give.
It's so obvious, though. Do you know what I mean?
No-brainer.
It's literally a no-brainer. We're talking about this now, and I know we're both on the same team, so, okay, it's easier. But
you're a youngster. You're not even 50 yet, Katie. You're a whippersnapper.
Hang on, May, June, July, August. I've got 5 more months, and then I will be. So
well, don't let anyone ever tell you to act your age. Remember, being older.
I've got no intention.
We're just younger people who've been around a bit. That's all.
Exactly. Well, I've had posts like this, but your insides don't age. Your soul doesn't age. Just the envelope that's carrying you through life ages, but everything on the inside is youthful. Well, it is for a lot of people, and a mindset. And for me, I've got teenagers, and the oldest one's about to go off to university. I am in a place where life is, and don't get me wrong, we have an amazing relationship. I don't want her to go to university, but I am full of life.
I can see that.
I'm entering my 50s, and I have so much more to give. Please do not close doors on me. I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared for people to see my age and go, "Oh, we're not even talking to her." I find that heartbreaking. So I totally, when you were talking earlier about how you've ended up here, I'm just like, why? There's so much to give. Sorry.
Well, how I'm going wonderful that you're doing this, Katie. That you're doing your Mad for Midlife. Program. I think it's brilliant. And the more of us who can speak up and do so positively in the way that you're doing, the better. I don't think there's much to be gained by whining over all the things that are wrong. Much more to be gained by demonstrating the great things that can happen if we embrace the best of youth and experience and people of all ages and backgrounds. Because ultimately, we shouldn't be judged by the number that's on our clock. We should be judged by the people who we are, the values that we represent, and the contribution that we can make to people around us. That's the ultimate measurement, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be measured in years.
Absolutely. Our time is up. However, I do like to leave everyone with a very similar question, which is very much the things that you're campaigning for, all the things that you are passionate about, all the things that you want to see change. If there is only one area that you can change to make sure, do you have children?
Yes, I do.
Yes. To make sure that when your children reach your age, what would be the one thing that you feel is the most important thing to change?
I think in a word, it's about equality. It's about getting to a point where everyone is regarded through the same equal lens of who they are and the skills and the values that they represent, as I said earlier. If we can get to a stage where people are not judged by their colour, by their age, by their creed, by their background, by their privilege, then we'll be in a great place. It sounds like nirvana, but why not? Why not? If we're able to advance as much as we have done technologically in the last 100 years, why can't we do the same socially as human beings? and put this incredible thing called our brain up there to better use in creating a better, happier, more harmonious place for us all to thrive in.
I'm with you. I'm joining you on that bus to wherever that is. Absolutely. I think the only problem is, and this, I don't want to end on a negative, so maybe I should keep my mouth shut. I just think many human beings are flawed, and that's why we have to keep fighting against it. I don't know what it is, because it doesn't exist in my brain.
Well, look at the pace of change. I mean, you've mentioned Noon earlier. Who would have thought that an organisation like Noon would be breaking down barriers the way that it is doing, at the pace that it is doing nowadays? We are beginning to see evidence of the gender pay gap reducing, albeit painfully slowly. We are seeing more female representation in boardrooms, again, really slow. So the pace of change rather is too slow. I think we need to find a way of lighting a fire under governments and employees alike to demonstrate that if we don't move faster, we risk stagnation, we risk alienating folk at a time where we need to include everyone, get everyone on the same boat, moving the same direction. And yes, there'll be a few folk who don't want to get on that boat. Well, good luck to them. But the rising tide surely is about how we can pull together in the same direction and create a better world for all of us.
I hope so. I am going to leave it.
I feel like I'm going to have to break it out into song now.
Yes, we do feel like some kind of
kumbaya moment.
Yeah, it was amazing. I like it. We're ending on our utopian positive, because that's exactly how I like to end things. So firstly, thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you.
I honestly enjoyed so much. I am going to have to go back and listen to this once it's saved and get all the statistics, because I only managed to write a couple of them. And they are really impressive statistics. So I'll be using those in some posts of mine in the future, because they were brilliant. It looks like lots of people have very much enjoyed everything you've got to say. I'm sorry we can't reply to all the comments, but if you would like your comment replied to, once this is posted onto my profile, please write it again when we have more time to address it. And I'm sure me and Simon will come down and do our best to answer any questions.
Well, thank you
thank you,
to everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. Remember, we're all in this together.
So go out there and sharing this message. We are tiny little fish, as we say, but the ripples make a massive difference.
Yeah.
So thank you for everyone joining us live. I will be back again next week with another inspirational person. I'm having the time of my life. I am learning so much. I am enjoying these conversations. So it's all for me, really. I'm very selfish. But I do hope the odd ripple does spread out. So thank you. I will see you all very soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.